Okay, this session is about opening up the pelvis for pregnancy to help easing pelvic girdle pain or lower back pain. It's a way of releasing tension in the pelvic floor, but it's also prepping us for birth. So if we think of our pelvis, it's in one big circle, and our pelvic inlet is where baby enters the pelvis. So throughout pregnancy, as baby gets bigger, the pelvis starts to open here, and that's what can start to create more pelvic girdle pain. And then as baby passes through head down into the pelvis, as you progress further into your delivery, then the pelvis starts to rotate the other way, and this widens our pelvic outlet. So that's different tension on the pelvic floor, and particularly from a delivery perspective, we want that motion, that transition to be nice and smooth, but we want that tension in that pelvic floor to be able to relax evenly on both sides. So this is where we're going to look at a lot more single-sided activity today. And again, for those of you that are struggling with that pelvic girdle pain, you might find quite a difference from one side to the other. So lots of pelvic floor release work. And again, we can look at how we can change those positions to focus primarily on the pelvic inlet, and then those later stages of pelvic outlet as you move towards that pushing phase as well. But the main thing whilst we talk about that as well is we think about how that pelvic position moves, and our sacrum, our tailbone, moves with that. So again, another reason why we reinforce trying not to birth on your back, because when you lie on your back, that pushes that tailbone under and it reduces that pelvic outlet by nearly 30%. So lots of upright active birth positions that we're focusing on today. So let's get started. So I'm sitting on a block or a towel, just so that I feel a little bit more perched through the pelvis, or if you want to kneel, that's fine too. And as we get started, let's just bring our awareness into the breath. Maybe if you want to connect to baby, I invite you to drop the eye line or close the eyes for a moment and just start to switch yourself off from those external noises and distractions, as this time is about you and baby. So maybe take a moment just to connect in. Those that are maybe further in pregnancy, what movements have you had today? Maybe just take a moment to say hello. And now as we draw more attention to the breath, that's steady in through the nose and out through the breath, trying to elongate that exhale. Or visualizing like you're breathing around a rectangle. Inhale as the short side and exhale as the long side. Hopefully our breath isn't up into our shoulders. So if you feel a little tense in there, maybe just give those shoulders a big shrug up to the ears and then let them go. Releasing the muscles around the jaw. Tension that we hold in the jaw and the throat directly affects our pelvic floor. So again, it's learning to let go. And then let's add a little bit of movement in with the breath. So taking that right hand down, left hand over. Breathing into the sides of the ribs, but keeping those sit bones anchored down into the mat. Just moving from one side to the other. Lovely. Good. One more each way. And then from here, I'm going to step that right leg out to the side, and I'm just going to take that stretch even further, reaching down the inside of the leg. If that's too strong for you, then just leave the feet back in that cross position. Big breath in, reaching down and back. One more, see if we can go a little bit further. Perfect. And then fold that leg back in, and I'm just going to use that elbow just to push that right knee round and take a little twist around to the left. Breath in as you lengthen up through the spine, and breath out as you release. Good. And then let's take that on the other side, stretching out through the left, folding that right knee in, using blocks or pillows if you need to support here. Lengthen down the left and breathing into the right. So anything where we're stretching into the inner thigh, that's going to help to release the pelvic floor, because our adductor muscles, our inner thigh muscles, actually blend up and form part of our pelvic floor and into the ligaments across the back of the pelvis. Again, stepping that knee in, hand to the inside if you can, and just nudge that knee round as you twist and look over that right shoulder. Breath in here as you lengthen through the spine, and exhale, release it down. Good. And then let's bring the feet together, knees apart, into our cobbler pose, and just circle round. Lifting that chest as you come through center. It's easing through the hips. Changing direction. Good. One more circle. And then from here, I'm just taking that block away from underneath me, stepping the feet out wider, hands behind me, and then I'm switching the knees in and out into our windscreen wipers. So again, this motion of the hip turning in and the hip turning out, vice versa, that is starting to rotate those pelvic bones. So again, how does that feel from one side to the other? And if you're a little stiff, you might find you end up kind of pushing your bum forward. So you don't have to touch the knee with the floor. But again, this is a really good one for working into our inlet and pelvic outlet. All about keeping motion and freedom in that pelvis and pelvic floor, and helping baby get into that optimal fetal position when the time is right. Perfect. So from here, we're going to come over into 4-point kneeling, but you're going to pop your block underneath your right knee. Okay, and then I'm in my 4-point kneeling, and our normal rock from side to side that we're doing, but we're rocking a little bit more to that right side. So as I rock across, the stretch should be down the back of that right side of the pelvis. So moving in and out. You might even want to take some little semicircles as you do that, and just see how that feels. And if you find that you can't rock particularly far and it's not bump that's stopping you, then reduce the height of whatever is under your knee. Great. So rocking from side to side, more so into that right leg. And then from there, I'm going to step that left leg out to the side, and I'm rocking back and forth. So again, similar moves that we've used in other classes, but adding that block to create that offset from right to left. And then I'm reaching that left arm up. So I've got same arm, same leg, nice big breath into the sky. And then exhale, threading under, dropping that left ear towards the mat. Breath in, reaching up. And breath out, reaching down. One more here. Nice big twist. And thread. Good. And then from here, I'm coming back up, and I'm going to bring that left leg out on the diagonal, so about a 10 o'clock line. And then I'm just bending forwards and back, so in that lunge. So again, now I've got this release through the inner thigh, but I'm stretching into that pelvic floor more so on that left side. Try to avoid being over here. So at the end of that stretch, I've got that knee over the ankle. And then from here, we're going to drop down onto that forearm and take a big stretch in, breathing into that right side of the rib cage. Hand can come to baby here if you want to. You can soften the eye line by dropping down. And then let's just give that right wrist a little circle out. And then releasing that hand, we're going to bring it into the small of the back. And then if we can, we're going to take that turn even further around. So really big stretch here, like our warrior two pose. And create some space in the front of the body. I'm watching that I've not sunk into the shoulders, I'm lifting up and out. And then release and bring it back to center. Stretch that leg out this time. And if we can, we're going to drop down to the floor and take that stretch in the opposite direction. Perfect. This top hand is going to windmill round. I'm bringing myself back to center, and then a little rock back and forth off the toes. So I've kind of pivoted round in a flow. And then from there, I'm going to step that knee back in. But now the pelvis is uneven, so it's slanting off on the side here. So we're going to do a little bit of strength work. So the toes are tucked under. Again, I can be flat hand, I can be up on the knuckles or on the forearms. So the knees are level at this point, and then as I exhale, I'm pulling the block, the floor knee up and in, so I'm level with the hips on the block side. And we're watching that we don't kink into the side of the body. So it's an exhale, pull it up and in. And the biggest thing is that you're watching that you don't end up leaning across into that block. So from a different angle, that's me pulling up and through without leaning. So as I lift now, my right hand should be free just to tap that opposite shoulder, and then I release. So I'm working hard into the shoulders, leveling up the spine and releasing. Let's just do 2 or 3 more there. Hiking up, so you should feel it working deep into that lower side of your bump. And then to finish that last repetition, we're going to extend that leg out or leave the toes down if that's up to you. And then if you feel like you can, extend that opposite arm. You might even be able to release the toes on that block side, and it feels quite wobbly. And then release, bring that knee back in, take that block out, and then let's release that down into child pose. Well done. So it's quite a long set there of flowing from one side to the other. So just take a moment to get the breath back before we repeat all of that on the other side. So again, just allowing that breath to fill the back of the body, releasing through the shoulders. So when you're ready now, pop your block or your towel underneath your left knee this time. And then from here, I'm rocking side to side with more emphasis into that left. Again, feeling the stretch across the side of the pelvis into that pelvic floor. So how does that feel in comparison to the other side? And where this is important as well, as baby's head tucks under as it comes through that pelvic outlet, if you've got uneven tension in your pelvic floor, maybe on one side than the other, that might be linked to back pain, pelvic girdle pain, previous injury. What that can do then is if the pelvic floor is uneven from right to left, that can change the angle of which baby's head's moving, maybe brings the chin out or takes it sideways, which again then can affect that delivery position. So again, another reason to really work on some symmetry in that pelvic floor. Little semicircles round here. And as I change my angle again, so from here, the right leg's coming out to the side this time and just gently rocking back and forth. You could even add like a little heel spin here, and that just changes that stretch through that pelvic floor. And then again, same hand as the straight leg, reach it up to the sky, turning baby up with you, pushing out of that left arm, and then threading under, dropping that ear towards the mat to create that space in the ribs. And again, breath in and breath out as you thread under. Let's take one more needle thread, lifting up and out and releasing down. From here, walk the hands back, and then we're bringing that right leg through to that 2 o'clock line, and then lunging on that diagonal. So adjusting the foot if you need to, so that that knee finishes over the ankle, and I'm working on turning this knee out, so I've got that big stretch into the pelvic floor. So this again could be an active birth position, and then if I switch sides, another active birth position. Or it might be that you did this in standing with a leg propped up on a step. So already you're building up a simple repertoire of movements that you keep changing. Because ideally with an active birth position, to keep that pelvis mobile, you want to be moving positions every 20 to 30 minutes. It might just be that this lunge changes from one leg to the other. And that's where it's showing your birthing partner some of these positions so that they can remind you on where to go. Let's take that into that side bend. So bringing that forearm down, hand to baby, nice big stretch, up and across. Breathing into this left side of the rib cage now. Pushing that right knee open still. Last breath in here, and then outward breath as we release. From there, we're going to bring that left hand down, straighten out that right leg, and then reach it over. Again, this time breathing into that right side. You can drop the eye line down if you like, or a stronger eye line is looking up. And then from there, give that right wrist a little circle. Let's just bring it down to the mat, turning that body round so that we're square on. And then a little rock back and forth into that calf stretch. Good. And then from there, fold that knee back in. So now we're in that stacked position again. The knees are level, the hands are under the wrists. Tuck the toe under and draw that knee up and into the pelvis. And controlling it back down. So again, we're trying to avoid swaying into that left side, so that left hand is free to tuck and release. Lift, tuck, and release. And to make that stronger, again, you could hover the toes on the floor leg, or maybe even the block leg. And it all gets a little bit wobbly, but it's again moving from that rocked side to leveling up and releasing down. Last one. Perfect. And then relax. From here, take that block away and sinking back into the child pose. So here in child pose, if we've got the knees wide and the feet together, that's opening the top of the pelvis. So that's our pelvic inlet. So through pregnancy, this one might be more comfortable for you. But again, we still want to keep the back of that pelvis and pelvic floor released. So now we're going to change and bring the knees closer together and the feet wider. Now, if that's too much on your knees, then just step that back to parallel. So knees in, toes out is pelvic outlet. So as you sit back now, you'll feel this space between the sit bones is wider. And then we'll switch knees in, toes, knees out, toes in, pelvic inlet, pelvic outlet. So again, you might opt to use this switching up position in your birth, or depending on where that tightness feels, you might opt for one more than the other. And I could use this on the birthing ball as well, or with my arms on the bed, so I don't need to be this low on the wrists. And then one more each way. Perfect. And then let's bring the legs to parallel. We're going to tuck the toes under, walk the hands back towards that yogi squat, and then let's just have a moment here as we rock from one side to the other. If yogi squat's not for you, then just work your way up into standing. Otherwise, from here now, grounding through the feet, pushing the arms up through prayer position if you can, bringing it into standing, just turning the toes forwards, and then we're going to draw those elbows down, stacking the wrists over the elbows if we can, and let's just soften the knees. And then we're going to bring the elbows and hands together, and then inhale, open back up. So exhale, close. Inhale, open. Nice stretch through the chest. Exhale, close. Inhale, open. Two more. And last one. And then from there, let's fold it forward, so nice and long in the spine, all the way to the mat. Let's have a little pedal out of the heels. If you don't want to be that low or heartburn's affecting you, then the hands can come to the thighs. And then half lift, sliding the hands up the shins, bending the knees so that the spine is long. And then exhale, folding forwards, width in the feet if you need it for bump. Inhale, lift. And exhale, release. Last one. And then this time we're going to drop the bottom, sweep the arms forward through our chair pose. Pause for a moment and then drive it up. And then from here, let's just take some hip sways from side to side. Just releasing out. And then into that figure of 8. So again, when we figure of 8 the hips, that is turning those pelvic bones forwards and backwards, right and left, doing different things. So again, really comforting for the back and the pelvis throughout pregnancy, but a really simple, effective birthing position. Wonderful. Okay, so we're going to actually come towards the wall for this one, and we're going to work to open up the back of the pelvic floor. And you can modify this position depending on your control. So what I'm going to do is start with one foot up against the wall. So make sure you've got grip and you're not going to slide off. And sort of a foot and a half away from the wall to start. I'm hinging backwards, so I'm going to keep the spine nice and long. And then as I sit back, the idea is I'm going to tap my bottom on the wall. So I'm not rounded under, bumps are forward. So if bumps in the way, just step this knee. Okay, so it's a little tap and then back up. I'm not sitting into the wall. And you'll feel this stretch again right down that same place that we've just done with the rocks. And if you find that you can't tap the wall or you end up sort of dropping back, then move your foot closer to the wall. Whereas if you find that you're in control, you can move it away. So it's an inhale as we lengthen, and look how long my spine is. And then exhale, squeeze those sit bones together and lift into that pelvic floor. 4 more here. Inhale. Exhale. Surprisingly tough for quite a small range of motion. And if you wanted to, you could have some dumbbells here or here to add some weight to that movement. Last 2. Steady inhale back. Exhale, squeeze, lift that pelvic floor. Last one. So we go from our stretch to our strengthen and lift. Good. Take a moment. Bringing that pelvis back to center. And then just a little sway from side to side before we take that on the other side. Now, if you are struggling with pelvic girdle pain and doing that on one leg is too much for you, then you could do exactly the same on 2, tapping back. Okay, we're going to take that onto the other side now, stepping that leg back. And this is where you might find one side is quite different to the other, so you might need to adjust the feet accordingly. But notice this knee doesn't change angle, it stays soft. I'm trying to avoid a kink, so sinking back. Inhale, exhale, squeeze and lift up into that pelvic floor. Good. And again, last 5. Inhale, exhale, squeeze and lift. So finish with that glute tightening. And 4. Slow on the way down. Inhale as that muscle lengthens and stretches. Exhale as it contracts. And 3. My counting is terrible. And 2. And 1. Good. And then from there you might want to just spin around, use the wall, and then let's just take that standing child pose or mini downward dog. I can sway the hips from side to side, so I'm just releasing out all this stretch where we've been working. So building on that, and that works really well as a postnatal exercise as well, to start to rebuild the glutes and the pelvic floor, particularly for those that are wanting to move back into more impact sport. But for now, let's bring it back to center. You're going to grab your block or your towel again. And then we're going to bring the right foot onto the block using our shallow squat, our chair squat. So this time we're sending the hips back to that same line that we've just done, and then reaching and squeezing. So working a bit more of the quads this time, but that glute is carrying on, so progression of where we've been into the wall. But again, with the feet offset, this is challenging that load through that pelvic floor, through the hips, and making them respond. So the ability of these glutes to lengthen in this squat is really important. Keep going, but what we're looking for on this angle is I'm not rounding under, the chest is lifted, the bum is back, And I'm trying to send those arms up and back. Let's pause here and just bounce. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and release. Good. Straight onto that other side. Switch the block over and sink it back. Arms are reaching up and back, so we're challenging that upper back area. It's like we're building a sports bra into our body. Sending that bottom back. And that's an inhale on the way down. Exhale, squeeze and lift. Good. 5 and 4. Really send those hips back. 3 and 2. Holding on this last one. And pulse. 10, 9. Keep breathing. 8, 7. Good. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and release. Well done. Give it a little thumpy boo in there. Excellent work. We're just going to take a stretch through the back of the hip there. So again, the glutes are quite hard to work in pregnancy because they get really tight, but we can't use a lot of our normal glute stretches. So for this one, you might use a wall or a chair for support. If the standing version's too strong, then come into sitting and do the same with the legs. So I'm just going to cross one ankle over the knee and sit back. So I'm making sure I've got support, or if I was on a chair, this would do the same. So now I've got that stretch through the back of the hip. And with having relaxing in the system, we're not going to stay here for too long in this stretch, but because we're loading it, we're still keeping some protection across the ligaments in the pelvis. 2 more breaths here. Inhale, allowing that hip to melt and release on that exhale. And 1 more. And releasing down. Good. And then let's change and take that on the other side. So crossing the right over the left and sinking down. And again, that stretch might feel different from one side to the other. And that's giving you ideas. So all these exercises we've done in today's session is information about your body. How does your right and your left feel? Maybe which side needs a little bit more work, or is that imbalance maybe what's contributing to some of your symptoms if you're getting back and hip pain. This is also a good one for sciatica as well. Last 2 breaths here. And then releasing down. From here, let's work our way back down onto the mat. So feet towards the back of the mat, a little bit wider. Let's take those arms up, big stretch up as we look up towards the ring finger. And then we're drawing those heels of hands down using that same hinge position. And then from there, we're going to walk ourselves down onto the mat into that 4-point kneeling position, and just take the hands a little bit further forwards. Rolling cat stretch here. Exhale, draw baby up and in as you sink back. Then inhale, elbows low, sweep those shoulder blades back. And again, exhale, round it back. Inhale, nice and long. And again, let's take 3 more here. Last 2. Flowing with that breath. And 1. And then a little release through the upper back. So stacking the hands back underneath the shoulders. And this time it's a little bit like needle thread, but we're not taking the hands off the floor. So I'm just dipping an elbow and turning to look over that opposite shoulder. And that should be working into that mid-back area. So a little twist and release. Twist and release. So again, stiffness in this mid-back thoracic area, down into that diaphragm. That rotation restriction can also impact what's happening at your pelvis. Last one here. And then again, reaching those fingertips forwards. And here, options to finish either in puppy pose with that nice long arm line, or seeing as we've opened up the backs of the legs, options again to come into downward dog. So those beyond 34 weeks, that's up to you whether you practice your downward dog. You might keep those knees bent and just pedal out, but really send babies back towards the thighs so we're not loading into those wrists. And if not, just stay down in in puppy pose and just take a few breaths. Otherwise, last few moments here. And then we're going to release the knees back down, tuck the toes under, walk the hands back and come into that high kneeling position. And then a little twist like we started, reaching that right hand behind, left hand to the knee and twist. Just drop baby backwards a little bit and breathe here. On that next exhale, return back to center and take that the other way, reaching that right hand across to the right knee. Left hand turns you round, find that length in the spine. And then exhale as you twist. Lovely. And then to finish, let's just come into cobbler pose. So those feet together, knees apart, and just some gentle bouncing here. If you need to sit on your block or your towel. Perfect. And then step the hands behind you. And let's take a big breath in through the front of the body. And if you want, you can drop that head all the way back. Push the tongue into the roof of your mouth. So you've got that full stretch all the way down from the throat to the pelvic floor. And then back to center, hands to knees. And let's just circle out again. Good. Change in direction. And then again, that last one to finish, step the feet wide and those little windscreen wipers. And that might feel different to the start. Maybe you've got a little bit more range of motion, or it just doesn't feel as tight through the hips as you twist. And then let's drop the knees over to one side. And then just a little reach forwards into mermaid pose. Breath in here. And breath out, release. You bring the hands back behind you and you switch the knees the other way. So the feet stay still, the knees switch. And again, reaching over that front shin. Full breath in and out and release. Coming back into a comfortable sitting position. And all we're going to do is take 5 nice, steady, deep breaths in through the nose and out through the mouth. On this next one, shrug those shoulders up to the ears, tense the toes, the fists, the teeth. And then exhale, letting go. Same again. Build that tension up and let it release. And 2 more. Last breath here. Feel that body energized and ready to go. Well done. Thank you.